When it comes to a marriage of man and machine, nothing gets more intimate than Grand Prix motorcycle racing. The rider straddles his machine, joins himself to it. They become one in a graceful ballet. The bike provides the thrust. The rider's job is control. Three-time world champion Freddie Spencer revolutionized motorcycle racing by discovering a new riding style, his own secret of speed. At an age when others were still trying to master their tricycles, Freddie Spencer was already experiencing his first taste of motorcycle competition.
Dad would have to hold me on the starting line because my legs were too short to touch the ground. I would have to use my entire body weight to maneuver the bike around. And what I found is that as I got older and I wouldn't have to, as I physically grew up and became more adapted, being able to maneuver the machines just through strength in my arms, I found that helped me prepare for the corners, especially when I started road racing at 11. It helped me prepare for the corners and everything much more fluid and to use my entire body weight to maneuver the machine around instead of just arm strength. Plus, when you use your entire body, your endurance is better. I think in the beginning, especially, it's very important that you don't get caught up in how, well, I could do this if I had this. I could be this much better if I had this piece of equipment, or if I had that guy's bike, or that guy's bike, or that guy's car, or that guy's anything. I don't think it's necessary to have the best equipment. In fact, in many ways, I think it's a hindrance. There's been many guys that I grew up racing against that they had really fast, let's say a 100cc machine that they raced on dirt tracking in the dirt track races. They'd go out and they'd win all summer, and they were going to be the big sensation. Then they would get on a larger machine and just fall on their face, where they were depending too much on the equipment and they didn't improve. I would finish second or third in the heat race, and my father would say, if we win tonight, it's going to be you. So in the main event, I just go out and figure out a way, or watch other guys, the older guys, and maybe pick up a few pointers and then apply it in my race. And that made me a thinking person's racer. And I think that's why that as I got older and started graduating to larger machines, more complicated machinery, I didn't have to have the best equipment because I'd already found out ways to go, to win. I felt I could win on anything. Starting so early was a benefit too, because I graduated up through the machinery quicker than most kids. And so I overcame kind of that fear of the speed. Most of my technique was developed that way, was just out of necessity through the early years, like when I was small, and thinking about ways to make it easier. My approach has always been very simple: to go out, prepare, and start the race and win the race as slow as possible. And I know a lot of people find that surprising, but to me, it's not the fact that I don't want to go fast, because, hey, I like speed, but it's just that you make less mistakes when you're not working as hard.
The dirt tracks. It was here that Freddie discovered his secret of motorcycle control. Without the size or physical strength necessary to muscle the machine, he instead used his brain. He figured out a method of transferring his body weight to maneuver the bike. This ability would lead to a unique Freddie style.
I think I learned more growing up on those type of racetracks, the ones that were unpredictable, where you didn't know what was coming. It could change. Racetrack, it would change from the heat race to the main event. It was like going to a different racetrack. The bike would be totally set up wrong, and there was a guy who could adapt the quickest, because the races were only 10 or 15 laps long, that would win. And I think that is what I've held over into the road racing more than anything, is taking those qualities, throttle control, knowing the limit of the machine, just through the feel of my own ability and what the machine is doing, and then taking it to the edge. I think that many people get in trouble on dirt machines because they don't change their weight positioning. most of the time when you start applying throttle, you have to shift your weight. The machine wants to rise, wants to lift up. So that's where you use your body weight to either keep it down, force the bike back down to the apex of the corner. Then you start steering to help you. Of course, we use a skid shoe, and that is, there again, that's just an extension of your center of gravity, the center, your body center, to where while you're shifting. It's just a feeler to give you an idea of how far you leaned over and how far you can go, and that, that respect. You do not want to put that much weight on your foot as you're entering the corner. You don't want to get it torn off or anything.
Now, let's take a little ride with Freddie and see how it all comes together on the dirt.
Dirt riding is an exaggerated form of road racing. To me, I brought a lot of my dirt riding techniques to road racing. And what that means is that weight distribution.
His first secret, instead of fighting the motorcycle, work with the machine. As you can see, Freddie's technique combines throttle control, body position, and weight transfer to steer the machine.
You do not want to remain stationary all the way through the corner, because as you can see here, I'm already starting to transfer my body weight to begin getting on the throttle to maximize my speed exiting the corner.
It was also here in the fiercely competitive world of dirt tracks that Freddie learned about another side of racing. The psychological games riders play to intimidate each other.
We used to race at a place in Benton, Arkansas, right outside Little Rock, and it was a quarter-mile bank dirt track oval. The old guys used to, I call them the old guys, they were 18 and 20. They would come down from Chicago. They'd have us race up there in Santa Fe, right outside Chicago, and drive down, and they called it cherry picking, where they would come to a money race like that, and it's easy pickings, they would think. They thought it was going to be an easy night, and went out and won the heat race and won the main event, and they came back the next week, and that's when they'd start talking. They'd start like coming over and looking at your bikes and basically trying to psych you out. They want to intimidate you. It's like muscle on the racetrack. They try to ride real close to you or cut you off, as we used to say, come across your racing line. We're talking $300 or $400 here, it's I'd get it through the next week, sometimes. Sometimes, a lot of times that $300 would also buy us some new tires, So it was survival money. It could get pretty intense. And years of field and development, just through repetition. You won't have that problem. When it seems like it's happening slowly, when it seems like it's slowed down, that's your reactions are so much sharper and you're so much quicker. That's when, if you notice every single time, that is when you've performed at your best.
Now let's take another ride with Freddie, and this time watch how he attacks the famed Laguna Seca road circuit.
As soon as you lean into the corner and you get the machine settled down, you can start applying power, and then you have to change direction. This is a very critical time in the corner for a bike, because the sooner you change direction, the sooner you can lift the bike up and start accelerating with full power. I've ridden against many people, guys that you would never think could get deep into a corner, that actually go deeper into a corner than I would. But where they lose all the time is that transition from braking to accelerating. And I think that's the magic point, the magic area that you want to reduce down to a minimum amount of time. On a fast corner, you do things a little bit slower because you have less time to make corrections if you do get into trouble. You're almost delicate in your actions with the machine. You cannot overpower motorcycles. You have to use the machine's ability to correct itself as much as possible. Somebody asked me one time in the beginning, they said, what is your real secret? I said, well, they gave me an example. They said, like Kenny Roberts, he doesn't get in the corners deep, but he has great exit speed. I said, well, my objective has always been get in as deep as everybody or faster and come out faster, you know? And that's basically it.
The motorcycle Freddie has been riding here is one of the fastest street machines available today. Now, reduce the weight by 50%, double the horsepower, and you have the Grand Prix motorcycle, a machine built for just one purpose: speed. 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, the quarter mile in under 10 seconds, and a top speed of nearly 200 miles per hour, all on just 2 wheels, sometimes less. Turning the awesome power of the Grand Prix motorcycle into speed is a task that challenges even the most experienced rider.
It's incredible now, the power to weight ratios on the 500 Grand Prix machines. We produce between 160 and 170 horsepower, and they weigh about between 240 and 250 pounds. It's still incredible though. You start applying power and it starts spinning the rear tire when you're leaned over, and then of course it's important to get it as straight up as you can as soon as possible. You don't want to do it too early. You go off, in the left-hand corner, you go off to the right side of the racetrack, but when they start accelerating, it's just you hold on. I've always felt that the race wasn't so much with the other guys as it is with the motorcycle. I mean, it's really you work with the bike, but you also battle with it to try to, maintain the control. Many times you think you have it in control and it spits you over the high side. Certainly I've had that happen. We all have. But that's just, that's why you respect it. And that's why I've always respected bikes in general, even less powered bikes. I've learned very young to respect the power of machines, and I believe it keeps you from getting hurt.
A motorcycle in the hands of an expert looks graceful, but the power and potential for speed can be intimidating to the novice.
It's scary to people who don't understand it. The guys who are crazy, they're not the ones who make it all the way to the World Championship. They usually don't make it that far for numerous reasons. Some of which surviving to make it that far, just because it's calculated risk. I mean, sure, there's risk involved, but you think about what you're doing. When I go out and ride on the street, I wouldn't ride without a helmet or a leather jacket or boots or proper gear, because I know the repercussions of accidents. I know what it's like to hit the ground at 100 miles an hour. And I think that really makes you sane.
To Freddie, the real secret of speed isn't physical, it's mental. And perhaps the most difficult mental task is that special ability to focus 100% of your attention toward the race, the art of concentration.
They always say, you see it in motor racing, the analysts, they talk about a guy who's, today he's really focused and he's concentrating very well. Well, obviously, most time he's the guy who's winning. And the reason why he's winning is because he's very prepared and it looks easy. It's easy to concentrate when everything is going well. But the guy who overcomes all that, who gets behind, and has problems, but still comes back and just works through it and still wins a race or still gets back up there, that's the guy I tip my hat to. That's the guy who overcomes the problems and still is able to, shake it off and get right back up there. I know guys that I've raced against over the years and even in the World Championship that you can get them rattled. No matter how well things are working, you can get them rattled by doing certain things, and it breaks their concentration just like that. This is what taught me that lesson. And it's really the first time I ever talked about that. What taught me the lesson is one night I was racing in Dallas, Texas, and it was a limestone racetrack, white limestone racetrack. So the lights were casting a shadow. When I'd go by the lights, I'd pass my own shadow. And I had the race won. It was like about 2 laps to go, and I was going down the back straightaway and was watching the shadow, and I watched it a little bit too long and just flat missed the corner. I'd lay the bike down and hit the fence and everything. And from that moment on, I was about 12 years old. Dad said, well, that won't happen again, huh? I said, no, I don't guess so. It cost me $50 silver. It starts very early. Concentration is a result of the preparation that you do when you get to the racetrack or in testing before the season. I believe it's all connected. I believe that if you show up on a racetrack on Thursday, you get the machine working as well as you can the first day, get all the bugs worked out, get the gear ratios correct, the suspension how you want it. So when you do have a good chance, you try to put in a quick lap on Saturday, and then you're prepared. And that's when I get into the racing mode. I start thinking about how the race might go, how the other guys have qualified, how the tires are working on this particular racetrack. The only variables you want to have on Sunday is things you can't control. Mother Nature, or some guy falling in front of you, or something something breaking on the machine. And that simplifies everything to where, your total focus, for me, the total focus goes on to what I have to do to win the race.
Coming up next, the race, the secret of winning. The race itself. Every motorcycle race has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The rider must be ready to show his speed right from the start.
Really, the start, just getting a clean start, making sure you get it, you get it started and just get away, and that's important. If I get an excellent start and I'm leading, I'll push hard right from the beginning and try to get some distance between myself and the rest of the pack. What I like to have on the board is I like to have whoever my main competition is to know within a couple laps of the race, first, second lap, where they're positioned. It's very critical not to let something stupid happen in the middle part of the race. If it's a 30-lap race, lap 10 to 22 or 3. It's kind of a tough part of the race because you start lapping traffic. Like I say, the tire performance usually goes down. It'll go down after 9 or 10 laps, then hit a plateau, and a lot of times that's when my lines will change. The way I enter a corner, because I have to change the entire line through the corner because the tire's reacting differently. And so to maintain the same lap time and pace, you have to adapt to what the machine is doing. The middle part, you get that out of the way, then toward the end of the race, you pretty much know how it's going to finish unless you're really battling with somebody. And if you're in a battle with somebody, that's, I feel like if you cannot get away from them during the middle part of the race or in the beginning, it's better to set them up.
Timing, that instinctive ability to make the right move at the right time. There is perhaps no better example of this than the Spanish Grand Prix of 1983, a classic battle between Freddie and the legendary Kenny Roberts.
I remember it was about 2 or 3 laps to go in the race, and Kenny and I had this tremendous battle. I would say it's probably the greatest race that I've ever been in, the most exhausting race for sure.
With the World Championship on the line, the 2 leading riders came upon slower traffic.
I think that's a good example of how he perceived the situation one way, and I chose another route, and mine worked. He took the logical choice of trying to pass the 2 riders on the inside, but I figured if Kenny chose that, I'm gonna go to the outside because this could be all backed up on the inside, and that's how it worked. And it worked out great for me. I was in the right place at the right time. That definitely won me the race because I had carried so much speed onto the front straightaway.
This one dramatic move not only won the race for Freddie, it was the key victory in his battle with Roberts for the World Championship. Rain. In his quest for speed, the rider must take on not just the pavement, but the elements as well.
It's a combination of controlled crazy because you're never sure what's going to happen next, especially when the racetrack is very puddled.
With the spray hitting his visor at over 100 miles per hour, the rider often faces near zero visibility.
Well, that's a problem, is vision. That's why it's best to be out front, because we have a problem with the shields fogging up, from the heat. I know a couple of guys who have been leading races have to stop because they can't see.
Next, Freddie compares motorcycle racing with automobile racing. Now that we've had an opportunity to watch Freddie's secrets on 2 wheels, let's see how they relate to speed on 4 wheels. Recently, he tried his hand at car racing, and quickly discovered some interesting differences. In driving a race car, for example,
You have basically one line through a corner because you have an entry, an apex, and an exit. And I think that limits your creativity to a degree that you have in motorcycle racing or just in riding in general. And I think that's why a lot of people enjoy motorcycle riding, is because you can do so many things with the bike. You know, you can go in low, you can go in the middle, you can go in high, you can square the corner off, or you can go in on the very bottom, right around on the bottom. There's so many different ways to approach it. I think the critical part is the changing of direction. And that is, you know, that's the same in cars or bikes or anything. And there again, on a motorcycle, you do that with throttle, steering, and weight transfer. And a lot of times that happens where you do the throttle and the weight transfer at the same time, and then you start steering it. When I talk about attack the racetrack, it's not working too hard. That's what I want to make sure that is understood. It's not the fact of, like, well, I want to get into the corner as deep as I can and throw the machine down and get on the throttle, and thing goes all sideways, and I regain control right before I hit the wall. And, you know, boy, man, my heart's pumping, and that was a great lap. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that attack the racetrack, if necessary, like the race is just 5-lap spurts. I attack the racetrack, and a guy may be looking at it going, I'm not working that hard. But I'm attacking the racetrack in my way. It's just to be aggressive.